should move forward if you have hearing issues.
No, I'm loud.
She is loud, trust me.
I'm loud. Okay, as I started to say, since it's so hot in here, we're going to go to the beach.
Let's go.
So, oops, what am I doing? Okay, this is my theme for the night here. Everybody says, what kind of rocks can you get in Florida? You can't get any rocks in Florida. Yeah? Wrong. This is a wonderful, come on, let's go, wonderful place to get rocks at Honeymoon Island. Now, how many people have been there collecting rocks? Good. Not many, not many. But it is a terrific place to get. It has some agatized coral left, but most of that's picked over. It has tons of what we're going to find out is chert. Most people call it agatized coral. I call it agatized coral, but it is chert. So basically this talk is about what you can get at Honeymoon Island and what you can create with those rocks. Because I make a lot of cabs with the chert that I find at Honeymoon Island, and it makes beautiful cabs.
Chert's purple?
No, that's just a, yeah, it's purple.
Oh, okay.
Let's go with that. That's
Yeah, let's go with that. No, it's black and white with
Okay.
occasional, but we'll talk about color in just a
Well, it
second.
looks purple from here.
We'll
Good.
sit out here then.
Wait, maybe not right.
Okay, anyway. I don't know, and this is not Tampa Bay, but I wanted to show you my underwater pictures. Maybe this is what Tampa Bay looked like 20, 30 million years ago. It's quite possible. And likely it was.
Where are those from?
The Keys. Florida Aquarium. And, and I also want to show you, this is areas where agatized and silicified coral were found in central Florida. And we have, here is where Honeymoon Island, and you've also found it in other places in Georgia, some of it's in Polk County, in Pasco. It's all different. Most of that, but Honeymoon Island is very unique in what it has. And it's really not found anywhere else. Okay, we're going to go pretty fast through the history of Honeymoon Island. The pre-1500s, the Tocobaga Indians lived here, and they were actually a very, very civilized bunch of Indians. They used tools. They used the agatized coral or the chert for their tools. They also built huts, and they had a very good civilization here. Very, very notable civilization. Until the Spanish explorers came. And the explorers actually were friends with the Indians, but they brought disease. And they wiped out every single Indian in that tribe that lived on Honeymoon Island, which is very sad. Now the next mention of Honeymoon Island in history is in 1875, and it's right here. And it was called Hog Island because somebody had the brilliant idea that we're going to raise hogs on Honeymoon Island. And you know what happens when you let hogs run around on an island? They just breed and breed and breed.
Turn
And
into pigs.
huh?
They turn into pigs.
No, the pigs turn into hogs and wild hogs. And nobody wanted anything to do with the island because it was all covered with wild pigs. So we don't want, okay. And then in 1921, there was a huge hurricane. Honeymoon Island used to be one long island. The hurricane came in, split the island in half, and now we have Caladesia in the south, and we have Honeymoon Island in the north.
So does Caladesia have the same rocks that Honeymoon?
No, and you'll see why. And there's a reason for that. Okay. Okay, in 1938, a guy named Clinton Washburn buys the northern island of Honeymoon Island. Let's do prices right. How much do you think?
50 cents an acre.
Yeah, well, $20,000 only, that whole island. Pretty good deal. But he had a plan. He knew exactly what he was going to do with that northern island. He started a contest for Life magazine, and they ran all these pictures and this stuff for the free 100 couples won free honeymoons at Honeymoon Island. And even Ronald Reagan and his wife applied to have a free honeymoon, but he turned them down. They didn't win. They weren't one of the winners. So they had, this was a big deal in 1939 throughout the country, that this place is called Honeymoon Island, and you could come here after you're married. I guess you got to be married in 1939, I guess. And anyway, and you got a free and you got a free honeymoon. But after that, of course, they would pay for it. Now, these are some of the postcard pictures that come from Honeymoon Island. Now, if anybody in this club sees themselves in these pictures from 1939, gets a free piece of agatized coral, okay?
Ah, there I am.
But what they did, this is really awful. They built just straw huts. That's what you lived in. That was your big honeymoon. Straw huts. Pretty exciting, huh?
Did you really care on your honeymoon?
Straw huts, yeah. And remember, there's still wild hogs
I
running
don't, you
around,
don't remember
too.
your
She's
honeymoon?
gonna talk about Divorce Island.
Yeah, divorce islands later. And I love this picture. This is the ultimate in sexism. Here's a husband, they're on their honeymoon. And what's she doing? Washing the clothes. And that's supposed to be an appealing postcard? To bring me to Honeymoon Island? I don't think so.
Things haven't changed that much.
No, and he's sitting there reading the paper. And she's washing. So anyway. Okay, in 1942, when the war started, Honeymoon Island was used for rest and recuperation of all the factory workers. Unfortunately, they trashed it. Completely trashed. All the huts were destroyed. The beach was destroyed. You wouldn't think that would happen with the factory workers, but it did. And the island was a mess.
Keyword being factory worker.
Factory work, okay.
Where did they bring the factory workers in?
You could come from any part of the country. You had to pay your own way, but they let you stay there for free. But then they trashed all the huts, the honeymoon huts, so there wasn't anything left, really, to stay. But they did use it for several years. Then in 1960, oh, this is the best part. This is the good part. In 1960, Hyman Green, who was from New Jersey, which is like where I'm from, New Jersey, said, I see a gold mine here. I'm going to buy this island, and I'm going to build 4,500 condominiums on Honeymoon Island. Can you imagine what a mess that would be? 4,500 condominiums on that little island.
You could have called it Clearwater Beach.
I know, that's true. So he managed to build the causeway. He did build the causeway from Clearwater. He did that. So then he decided, I'm going to hire a company to bring in fill from Tampa Bay, and we're going to add like 7 feet. He added 7 feet high of what he was planning on being sand onto Honeymoon Island. Unfortunate, and then look at this, over 1,500,000 cubic yards of rock was dredged from Tampa Bay. Now, none of this was illegal then. No, there were no environmental regulations, nothing. So that's what happened. And then he came to see the island. The island was covered with rocks. The company didn't dredge sand. They dredged agatized coral and chert. The entire island was not sandy at all. It was all rock. Good rock. Could you imagine being there then? How wonderful that was. Was good rock. But he was not happy at all. And this is an interesting thing I found in one thing. This, because they dredged so much rock from Honeymoon Island, from the bay, Tampa Bay and the Gulf, this is the original Honeymoon Island here. My dotted line is what the original is. He added all this rock, they added all that rock there, and what it did is it changed the angle of the island, which means that whenever we get storms or anything like that, it washes away sand. the island was, the whole ecosystem was completely destroyed because of that fill that was put in, that wonderful agatized coral rock fill. Okay. In 1974, Florida bought Honeymoon Island, and you know what's kind of interesting? I looked everywhere to try to find out how much they paid for it. They don't have it anywhere as to how much they paid for it. They keep that a big secret. I don't know why, but they do. But I don't think they paid much, really. And so they started, in 1989, Pinellas County started trucking in sand. Kept putting sand on the island, and it got washed away. Sand on the island again, washed away. And there's nothing there's no way now that they can keep sand on that island because of the angle of the island now, since it's been changed so drastically by the dredging rock. Now, these are the kind of rocks. By the way, I took all these pictures on Honeymoon Island, so these are real rocks on the beach. So you can see there's really not much sand. So these are the type of rocks that Honeymoon Island has. Limestones, there are geodes, and I do have some geodes here. The really good geodes are gone, but little guys like this can still be found. And here's another one that's from the island. A lot of, and you know, you never know if you find something there and you cut it in half, you have no idea whether it's going to be a geode or not. Has pebbles, of course, agatized coral, quartz, sand, sandstone, coral, and chert. And what we're going to concentrate on today is agatized coral and chert. Now, agatized coral, now I'm not a biochemist, I'm not a geologist, so bear with me if you have geological questions. I'll be honest and say, I don't know. You know? Okay, we'll ask Mark then. But anyway, this is how agatized coral is formed. There's silica in the water, and over many, many, many millions of years, it replaces the limey coral, the center of the coral, with the quartz, and it becomes agatized coral. And so let's talk about what silica is. And silica is everywhere. Silica is, we have silica in our bodies. Bugs have silica skeletons, the little creatures in the world, but
I'm sorry, it grows from the center out,
what?
the agatized coral?
No, the outer
Okay.
form is kept, but the inside decomposes,
Yep.
and then it's filled with the silica.
Okay.
And that eventually turns to quartz,
Okay.
which is agate too. Okay. And anyway, it's like you said, the Earth's crust has 59% silica, so it's a really important element when you're talking about rocks. Okay, I do have one picture here. This is one thing that I did get on Honeymoon Island, and it's a piece of coral that wasn't, and I have it here if anybody wants to see it. It's not completely agatized. It's pretty hard, but not hard enough to calve. But it's still a really nice fossil, which is a rock.
Thank you.
Now here's my baby. Here's chert. Now chert is a sedimentary rock, and we'll talk about that in a second. That's composed of cryptocrystalline, microcrystalline quartz, which is basically tiny molecules of quartz. And it's characterized, it's very, very hard. When you saw this stuff, oh my God, the first time I ever sawed it, I used a plain old diamond saw. It got held up in there. It's a hard. They say it's 7. I'd swear it's 8. I really would in a lot of cases. And because I want to show off my Utah photos. You find sedimentary rock everywhere in the United States. And there's a good example of it too, in the sandstone in Utah. It's just the rocks that are formed by the accumulation, the piling upon piling upon piling upon piling of organic material, of carbon, of limestone, depending upon what part of the country you're at and whether it's underwater or out of water. Tons of different possibilities for what kind of rock you're going to get with sedimentary rock. Okay, so when you go to Honeymoon Island, you're going to see a rock like this. And you're gonna think, well, what the heck can I do with that? What am I gonna do with that thing? It's useless, absolutely useless. Well, there's tricks to figuring out whether these rocks are any good. First of all, you always like to see, ooh, there's a little bit of black in there. That's a nice rock. And then when you cut it open, what's inside? Very, very pretty. Very, very pretty chert inside. Sometimes you'll see a rock that has druzy on the outside. Where's a druzy rock? You'll see druzy on the outside. Pam is the druzy queen. This girl's like a magnet. She finds every piece of druzy that's on the beach.
Black and white.
Black and white, yes. Anyway, again, take it. You can cut it, make beautiful calves with it. Okay, let me go back. I just wanted to show you. These are the types of bioclast. We'll go back to this one. You see that shell there? There's a shell remnant there. And there's also little fossils in here, little guys like that. And they're all what are called bioclasts, which are the skeletons of microscopic, or not actually microscopic, macroscopic creatures, underwater creatures, because most of Tampa Bay, or Tampa, Pinellas, and all was underwater 30 million years ago. Okay, this is where we get to technical stuff, and I'm not real good at it, but I tried to make charts so to help you guys and to help me too. But anyway, here's what happens. You got all the little particles, the little critters and all that, falls down into what's called ooze. And ooze is basically, you ever walk in a swamp and you go, you know, or you're in the part of, even in the bay, you'll walk in an area and, you know, and you go, oh God, and it feels like quicksand. Well, that's what they call ooze. And Florida ooze is made up of calcium carbonate and a muck of all the little skeletons of all the critters who have died. Okay, and part two, the silica is not stable when the organism dies and it begins to crystallize. Now, we're talking here 30 million years, so we're not talking like next weekend. We can go get the agatized coral. But it slowly gets buried, and it's buried and buried, and most of the agatized coral or chert from in this area here was down about 100 meters. And then again, pressure and temperature continues to crystallize it and break down all the organic material. And that, remember, that organic material gets replaced by quartz or silica. Okay, and then this is where the fossils come in. Other organisms also lay down in the ooze, and that's how chert actually forms, because real agatized coral, which this is a solid quartz or agate in one piece of a piece of coral. It doesn't have all the bits and pieces that chert has. I actually find chert to be much more attractive than agatized coral. Now there's some agatized coral like this that has the botryoidal coral, which actually was found on Honeymoon Island too. That's pretty, but I'm a cabber, so I want to be able to cab my stuff. So this doesn't cab very well. It's not that exciting looking, but this cabs beautifully, and we'll go into that a little bit later. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. Here's the different colors of chert, and this is also different colors of chert that you can find here in Tampa. Black chert, which we have here on Honeymoon Island, and we're talking about Honeymoon Island, is always black because the organic material stains black. But you have some gray in our chert, but not that much. Green, of course, has ferrous iron. And then we can also get the brown. This is from Flatwoods. You know, if anybody ever wants to go to Flatwoods, you can go and get beautiful brown agatized coral in Flatwoods Park. But again, we're talking about Honeymoon Island. Flatwoods is a different talk, but it has beautiful brown agatized coral in Flatwoods.
Where's that?
Flatwoods is Temple Terrace. Yeah. And as long as the coral is on the land it's legal to take. You can't, for instance, put scuba gear on and go diving for agatized coral, say at Honeymoon Island. You can't take any agatized coral or chert out of the water. So you just plan to be there at low tide, you know? And it doesn't matter, there's so much of it on. And also, after a hurricane or tropical storm, oh my God, is
So
it
that-
good.
You must get a better selection than after.
Oh, it turns and churns and churns, and you get beautiful stuff. This botryoidal one I found after Irma, Hurricane Irma. You gotta get your butt there right away. You gotta, you know, you wait for the storm to be done, and you go on Honeymoon Island. You go to Honeymoon Island. All right, now, the areas of the chert, the black areas are the agate, hard as can be. When you're sawing that, and then also the, whoops, what did I do? I changed it. The soft limestone, which is the white area, you're sawing through it and you go right through that with the hard stuff. I mean, it's slow and tedious and also very dusty, but we'll get into that too. But I just wanted to show you the varieties, and so you really have to have a special blade, in my opinion, to cut agatized coral or chert. Oh, real quick. These are all the same. Chert's the same, flint's the same, jasper's the same. They're all formed the same way, but they're formed because in different parts of the country or the world because of different colors of the organic material in them. So you can see, and this is the flint that's real fine grained. But you know, the Indians did use the chert on Honeymoon Island to make their arrowheads. So, okay, here's the rules. When cutting this, always wear a mask. You would not believe the dust. Whether you, I have a, where's my saw? No, I'll show that later. The dust that comes from this and the chalk that you get in your reservoir of water is horrible. It's really horrible. It's very, very, very bad for you. You get silicosis. It doesn't matter. I cut outside all the time, and I have azalea bushes and bougainvillea, and we're done cutting. They're all white. The leaves are white. The flowers are white. Everything's white. Because even though I have a lot of water going, the dust goes everywhere. Okay, this is the best thing in the whole wide world. I don't know if any of you have heard about this. This is a wonderful blade. I actually use it for all my rocks now, but I initially bought it for the coral. It's called an agate cutter. You get it at Kingsley North or wherever else you get your blades. And it's really nice because the water goes up in here and spits out of these little holes here and keeps your stones cool. It's a wonderful blade. It's an expensive blade, but it's worth every cent because it cuts through like butter. It goes through the coral, the chert and the agatized coral like butter. Okay, here's the saw that I use. Oh, and by the way, that has to be used on a water-cooled saw. You can't use it on an oil saw. But you know, I often wonder too, with when you cut the agate on an oil saw, wouldn't the oil soak into the real soft areas?
It does, but you have to wash it out with
Yeah,
detergent and stuff.
yeah, that's why I really like using the water.
The RPM, Sue has.
And also, this has a very, very high RPM. So you can't use this blade on an oil slab saw. So here's the saw that I use.
Janet,
What?
what size saws are we talking about? All size saws?
The agate cutter goes up to a 10. I think it goes up to a 12. But I have a 7-inch one on my, I'll show you, I got that too. I got a 7-incher on my saw that I cut the cabs with. And then I got a 10-incher on this tile saw.
What RPM is it?
Oh, God, I don't know. I really don't know. But I know in the catalog, the Kingsley North catalog, they tell you that.
Yeah, 1750 is normal.
Yeah.
You know, so if you don't go over that, you should be okay.
Yeah. Then you get some slabs. have a few slabs after you collect a few rocks. Okay, now let's go over some of these, and this is the cool, I'm gonna tell you something really cool. This is a bad slab. I'm gonna show you, here's a good slab, we're waiting on that one. This is a bad one. Got some beautiful fossils here, but there's so many pits, there's so much limestone. It's nasty. However, if there's an area that you wanted to save this, say you wanted to do this area right here, or let's just eliminate it. You got this little teeny bit of limestone right here. The magic is epoxy 330. And save your dust. When you have your tray, if you're cutting this stuff, if your tray is full of dust, just take an old coffee can lid or something, put your dust on the lid, and let it dry out. And people may think you have little cocaine in your house or something. But I save all the colors of all my stones, actually, all the dust. And then what you do is you take the 330 and you mix it with your dust. And you make a paste. And you can fill in a spot like this with paste, and after 24 hours, you cannot even tell that you've repaired that area of the stone.
What is that you have over here?
Epoxy 330. It's a beautiful epoxy because it's clear. It dries clear. It's a two-part, yeah. It's a hardener and a, yeah, I guess you believe me.
Well, it doesn't dry clear if you have dust.
But that's really important though, because what if you have to fill an area that's white?
What I'm saying, she said
No,
It does.
it does. It doesn't add, it does
color of the dust.
It takes the, thank you, thank you. It takes the color of the dust.
He's been. Well, I'm not gonna
But
say-
I also save all my dust from chrysocolla, from all kinds of jaspers. I have probably 40, 50 vials of all different colors.
So you let it dry.
You let it dry for 24 hours. You want it, and then you just sand it down. You have to sand it down on like about a 260 wheel. If you put it on the 100 wheel or the 65 wheel, it'll eat it right out. But if you put it on the 260,
Wait, what are we talking about?
after your stuff, your 330's dry,
Yeah.
then you gotta mound it a little bit. It's gonna throw your slab off a little bit. It's gonna make your slab funky a little bit.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the dust, just the dust.
That has to be dry.
Right, it's dry, that's what I was talking about, not after you applied it, I'm sorry.
No, it has to be dry
All right,
before
yeah.
you mix it.
So, but what you're doing is the bottom of that saw, the water, you're letting that all dry out.
No, what I usually do, well, yeah, I'll drain it out and there's always sediment,
Yeah,
right?
Right,
Okay, just take that sediment out, or whatever you're cutting, whether it's for the agatized coral or for the chert, it's a white, it's usually white. But even like with chrysocolla or malachite or anything like that, the dust is the color of the stone.
right. We're just
So
drying that out.
you just dry that out. You just use like a little spatula, pick it up, put it in a top of a plastic thing, and just let it dry. And it turns into dust.
Okay, and then you.
Mix it with the 330.
Okay, and then you're gonna have to cap it with that, after that.
Yeah, but it's as hard as the
You're saying
stone.
it's 330, you said?
Yeah. It's epoxy 330. You can get it anywhere. You can get it at,
But what wheel are you talking about?
huh?
You said what wheel?
I wouldn't, you wanna flatten out your epoxy, hardened epoxy with about a 260. If you use anything, like the 100, it for some reason, it rips it out.
Okay.
The 260 is the best one to do that with. Now, I have a flat lap too, so I'll just lay it down on my flat lap. So if you have a flat lap, you can just lay that little bumpy area down on the flat lap. In a majority of cases, you don't even see it. And in a lot of cases, I've had to repair people's stones in jewelry class and stuff. I broke my stone. What am I gonna do? I said, I'll give it to me. I'll take it home, and I'll fix it with 360 and a little bit of the dust from that stone. And it's an amazing way. I think it's a Janice invention. I've never heard that anywhere else. So I should copyright it or something. I'll write an article for Gem and Mineral magazine or something like that. But anyway, that's how you fix a bad stump. But this one, I wouldn't even bother with this one. This one goes in the French drain in the backyard. Now this is a beauty. Oh my God, this is a beauty. This is hard. These areas, these areas are hard. I can get a lot out of that. And these areas around here that are a little bit brown, they're hard too. The edges are very soft. I'm not even going to use them. So here's my template, and that's the area that I'm going to use for that template. Okay? For that cab, rather. Now here's that cab again. And this is my dirty saw stand. And that I'm using also, because it's the agatized coral, the 7-inch. I use a 7-inch blade on that particular tile saw. And that's me using one hand to cut with and the other hand to take the picture with. So I advise you don't do it with one hand. Do it with two.
Show the next picture with no fingers.
Yes, yes, yes. Blood. Okay. And there it is, cut out. And there I am cabbing it. And here I am wearing it. And here's another one. And I have some here. Here's another one that's from, it's a beautiful stone. Oh my God, it goes to the tumbler. You can take this thing and throw it across the room and it's not gonna break. This thing is so hard. It's a beautiful stone. What?
So let me see, you don't throw it across.
No, that's okay. But anyway, so anyhow, I have some, so that's it for my talk.
Great job.
You wanted 30 minutes, I gave you 30 minutes exactly. But I have some cabs here that if you'd like to look at them, and I have some other examples of different agatized coral and druzy. Oh, and one thing I did want to mention, it's kind of interesting. Up in the Withlacoochee, you can get blue agatized coral. That's beautiful. From Rouge. Oh. Yes.
She's not a true friend.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was.
Like, wait, when
I
did
had
you
no
go
idea
there?
what
Excuse me,
agatized
what?
coral. I had no idea what agatized coral was. But I was at a garage sale
Uh-huh.
in Withlacoochee.
Oh, okay.
on
That's from the
canal,
Withlacoochee property.
And I told the lady that I like rocks, and she said, oh, there's some rocks down there. She says, take a look at it. Anyway, I got this big one, and it's got the blue in it.
That's from the Withlacoochee
I mean, it's
River.
huge.
Mhm.
It's huge.
Mhm.
No, there's actually.
And I didn't have a clue what it was. I just liked
In
it. Now I
Withlacoochee
know.
too?
It's not prevalent, but it's here and there.
Well, you know what kills me is when you're going to developments. In fact, South Tampa is one of the biggest resources of agatized coral when they're digging foundations for houses and apartments.
Bay to bay.
Bay to Bay, yep, and down by Ballast Point area, yeah, definitely.
You gotta be 500
Yes.
yards off the shore.
Is that from the dredge or is there indigenous?
There are no indigenous rocks on Honeymoon Island. All the rocks from Honeymoon Island are from dredge. It's all dredge. That's why the guy from New Jersey was so happy. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'm not thinking about it right. Does it behave like a liquid when it's forming?
Yes, it's
Okay.
just tiny, tiny, tiny crystalline particles.
Okay, how long does like an agate silica take to form?
An agate from silica?
Well, I don't.
Millions, well, this stuff, they guess to be 30 million years old.
Okay, but did it take the 30 million years to form?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because maybe I'm just hoping somebody can clear this up for me. Say, let's say example, you have a crystal like a Herkimer diamond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that crystal at some point began to grow inside the pocket of what it was
Right.
in, right? And it only grew for so long before it stopped growing. It used up its resources or whatever
Okay.
to grow from. So even though it's where they like 17 million years or something like that old. I'm wondering how much of that time period was when the crystal was actually growing,
Well,
as opposed
a
to.
Herkimer diamond is almost like druzy. In
Yeah.
that druzy is an area that the quartz is attracted to the edges of the cavern or whatever, and then it just stops, and there's no more development. And that's where there's a lot of crystals are that way.
Okay, but
Calcite's
silica,
that way,
though.
for instance.
Yeah, I thought, I was also under the impression that calcedony was also behaved like a liquid.
It all started as a liquid.
Okay.
All rock started as a liquid. And then pressure and heat and time. Remember that that muck, that ooze was pushed down 100 meters minimum. And then the pressure on top of that are things piling on top, and then the heat of the earth itself. And then the what do you call it? The dissolving of the organic stuff. It all contributed to that. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a geologist, so I'm not. I know.
I'm just wondering, there's things. Unfortunately, I didn't start as a younger person.
Neither have I. Neither did I. Neither did I.
It seems like some crystals form fairly fast,
That I couldn't tell you.
and others
Maybe they do.
take a long time.
Yeah, but those aren't crystals. Those are probably very, very short-lived crystals. Very soft. If they're if they take a quick time to form, they're probably very soft.
Have questions for Janice?
I guess. I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay.
I'd like to know, but I don't.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
When you're doing it and you got a lot of dust,
Yeah.
you don't have enough water, do you use additional, like a squirt bottle to keep it?
My pump you saw that picture that had all that water. I got a ton of water coming down. A ton of water.
What do you got, a genie?
On what? On the
She's talking about your lapidary.
Oh, in the lapidary?
Lapidary,
I have a Cab King, but I put my own water supply on the Cab King. I took the old water supply off of my Cab King, and I put individual valves on top with a water supply, so I have a ton of water coming down. And I can control very easily the intensity of the water.
There's a YouTube video on how
I
to do
thought that came with the spigots
It
on
does,
top.
but they're horrible.
They don't work?
They're horrible. I had to replumbed the whole thing and made a water source from a sink because the pump's not enough. The pump is not enough water. So I actually have it all plumbed up to a sink so that I can turn the faucet on and have as much power as I want coming through.
Janice, can you come look at those?
Sure, sure.
Nope,
Yeah.
that's private stuff.
Honeymoon Island is a state park,
It's a state park, yes.
and they legalized.
On the land, only on the land.
You can